Blue men over there?
Yeah, right. Week 2 in the NFL, and your Philadelphia Eagles are in Kansas City for another Super Bowl rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome in to the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel and the Verizon Pregame Show. I'm Mark Farzetta, along with Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner and veteran Eagles reporter Derek Gunn. Now, how much does this matter leading into this game, Seth? I got to know this right out of the gate from a former player. Because a lot of the talk during the week was about the familiarity between these two teams, playing each other every year for about 4 years now. Does that matter, and does it start to really become like a divisional matchup?
Oh, no. Definitely.
Okay, good.
I get it that they've played quite a bit, over the last couple of years. The difference is going to be, you think about from a strategic standpoint, the players are familiar with each other. The issue is going to be, okay, how is Steve Spagnuolo going to attack this offense today, and how is this offense going to attack him, and vice versa with, our defense and their offense. They're down a lot of players. We're young on the defensive side of the ball. Those are the dynamics that I worry about a lot more than I do the familiarity between the two teams and how often they play each other. Every year, every game is a different animal.
Certainly do. What do you expect in terms of familiarity, Gunner, when it comes to a matchup like this?
I expect Kansas City to play a little bit more desperate type football because in the Patrick Mahomes era, the Chiefs have never started the season 0-2. The Chiefs basically were embarrassed by the way they played against the Chargers a week ago. You saw some uncharacteristic traits on the Chiefs sideline last week. You had players bickering in the latter part of the game, and then you saw, I think it was Bolton going after Chris Jones for losing containment on that defining run when Justin Herbert slipped outside and picked up the first down and basically sealed the game. You don't see Kansas City players like that jaw-jacking on the sideline, so they stepped out of character a little bit. Patrick Mahomes talked all week about how many times he watched that Super Bowl game. He said because when you watch and you watch and you watch, you learn. You continuously learn from what went wrong for us. He goes, that still stings. You think about that. That was, 9 months ago, 8 months ago. It still stings. So it's still embedded in their minds how they got embarrassed on national TV. They were the big kids on the block, and they got knocked down significantly in that game. And then, of course, they come out and lay a golden egg in the season opener. So I'm looking for Kansas City in their home environment. Arrowhead Stadium is one of the loudest stadiums in all of the NFL. Every time I've been to Arrowhead, I put it up there with Seattle Stadium, places like that in terms of noise volume. So I'm looking for a much more desperate Kansas City team. And I don't like to use the word revenge. I think the word revenge is overused. You're either going to come out and play your game or you're going to get your butt smacked. That's the way it is in the National Football League.
Certainly. All right, now let's talk about something that a lot of people were kicking around throughout the week, and that was whether or not the punishment for Jalen Carter was significant, substantial, whether or not he should have missed another full game of time due to spitting on Dak Prescott. Seth, with the ruling of the NFL, they counted his not playing a snap in the Week 1 opener there. They counted that as a suspension, and they also fined him $57,000. Did the NFL do right by him, and how does Jalen Carter bounce back from this?
No, I think it's fitting. $57,000. I mean, that's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money to forego. But the punishment fits the crime. I just thought that it was excessive for people who wanted to talk about that the suspension should have been additional games. Listen, he got kicked out of the first game of the season, didn't play. I don't know what the protocols are, D-Gun, as far as, if you don't play, you get ejected, whether you lose that game check or not, and whether that fine is a combination of Week 1's check and Week 2's check. So I'm not sure. But I think, what he got was fitting, and anything more would just be, excessive in my opinion. How does he bounce back? I thought he was pretty darn contrite after the game last week. I thought he was pretty contrite all week long in his commentary. The team the veterans, everyone talked about it. You know, as the week went on, he talked about it less and less and less. And I think he's just itching to get back out on the field, let his play do the talking from this point forward, and allow, you know, this whole incident to kind of fade. You know, and we talked about it, you know, last week, talked about it on my show, on my podcast. I feel like this is, you know, the moment for him, if you will, because, you know, everyone has their opinions, D-Gun, about what happened with him pre-draft. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you throw this on top of it, and there's people out there that say, well, now you see why he lasted to the pick 9, why he fell in the draft. Okay, it's up to him now to change that narrative. And if this isn't enough to change the narrative for him, then Howie Roseman's really got to think about next year whether a long-term $40+ million extension is something that you really want to give a guy, you know, whose character you have to continually question.
You look at how Nick Sirianni talked about this throughout the week, and mum was the word. He didn't say much on anything. Everything was in-house. Everything was in-house. Well, Gunnar, you talk to those people quite often that are in-house. How do you think they handled it?
The best way possible. They sat down, they talked to him, and they've given him parameters as well. Here's my concern when you talk about a Jalen Carter. It's a ticking time bomb. You look at his history. I mean, he came up rough, went through a lot in his life to get to where he is. He loves the game. There's no question he has a passion for the game. But I've said time and time again, who can bend his ear on a regular basis? And it comes down to this: Nick Sirianni, Vic Fangio, Big Dom. Those are the 3 primary people. And I would put Big Dom at the head of the list because Jalen spends a lot of time in Dom's office just sitting and talking about life and things of that nature. And Dom's not afraid to get on him and get in him about maturing and emerging into a leader. But they also understand we don't know when the next episode could happen with him. There's a part of me that believes I think he just needs to get a little help away from the game of football. Just somebody he can sit down and talk with on a regular basis. And that's not a knock against him because I know a lot of former players who have had people away from the game, therapists, psychologists, away from the game they can sit and talk to about what they're going through, struggles they're going through. So that's not uncommon in today's NFL or the past NFL for that matter. I just think they need some type of watchdog over him. And I hate to say that because I think he could be a Hall of Fame player. If he continues to go the course he goes as an athlete, he could be a Hall of Fame player. But I'm also concerned that if he continues to go in the course he's going on, there could be an episode that really taints his career that could negate him from receiving a lot of accolades in life and in the game that he might fully deserve.
Yeah, especially a huge bag that Seth referenced earlier.
You know what? The best way to get a player's attention in today's game, hit him in the pocket.
Absolutely.
It's the best way.
Now, let's talk. Okay, so that's the unfortunate drama that took place on the field of play last week. Now let's talk about Jalen Carter, just the football player, and what his impact could be. Because one of the things I was really looking forward to, and I know I wasn't alone in this, all of Eagle Nation, hey, all the problems that the Eagles might have on the defensive side of the football, when you talk about corners, and you talk about breaking in rookie or young safeties, all the tide basically to rise the rest of the ships was supposed to be Jalen Carter's pressure on the interior line of scrimmage there. What is his impact you see in this game today, Seth? Talking about Jalen Carter going against that Kansas City Chiefs offense.
Well, you know, anytime you're playing against Patrick Mahomes, it's all about pressure, and it's all about keeping him contained within the pocket. I thought Vic Fangio had a great game plan for the Super Bowl. The ends were instructed not to get up the field, but to rush, you know, through the tackles, and we're going to get pushed up the middle, you know, with our 2 defensive tackles. That's first and foremost the way that you have to control Patrick Mahomes. And today he's going to be operating without his 2 best, you know, wide receivers. So he's going to be working with 2 guys that aren't, you know, listen, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown. They're guys that he's worked with, but these aren't the players that Andy and Mahomes really looked at to be their go-to weapons. So the pressure's got to be there, and I honestly think that, you know, Andy had a little bit of reversion of his time in Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. They didn't run the football. And he said that we couldn't run the football. No, it was more that you never really committed to running the football, if you go back and you look at the numbers. I think they kind of got caught up a little bit last week in their loss to the Chargers. And I'm pretty sure he would say, well, they got a lead, they got it out in front. Well, the game was always close enough until the end for you to run the football to give yourself a balanced chance of winning. You just chose not to. You kind of reverted. But now that you don't have your starting wide receivers, he's almost forced to come out today and try to establish the run. What does Jalen Carter mean to that? His ability to dominate the line of scrimmage next to Jordan Davis, who last week probably played his best game as a Philadelphia Eagle. They're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. Those two guys are a vital part of keeping those linebackers clean and allowing them to get to the ball. So that's what Jalen Carter brings to the table. It's not just his pressure on the quarterback. It's how he dominates the line of scrimmage and make plays in a running game. Some of these defensive tackles, most of the defensive tackles in the National Football League, you're either a pass rusher or a run stopper. Very, very difficult. There's very few guys, that are just, talented and gifted enough to be able to play and be dominant, in the run game and the pass game, and Jalen Carter is one of those players.
How much do you think he impacts Gunner when it comes to Adoree Jackson on the outside or even Quinyon Mitchell in terms of helping those guys out in their coverage?
Oh, I think his presence is immense when it comes in terms of taking pressure off the back seven on that defense. There's no question. In terms of how long they have to cover somebody, with him and Jordan Davis on the opposite side, especially the way Jordan Davis played last week, if he continues that, you get that significant push in the middle and force a quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes off his spot, make Patrick Mahomes that much more uncomfortable, make Patrick Mahomes get rid of the football a lot quicker than he wants to. That's a big sigh of relief for those guys in the back end who are trying to hold up against these receivers, because you don't know, especially in a broken play, when a quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes starts to improvise, you don't know which way his receivers are going, which makes a DB look bad in a lot of cases. You get those two to get that push, especially Jalen Carter getting that push, collapsing that front line up there. That's huge on the back end.
This week, we heard from Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio talking about Adoree Jackson, and he just asked specifically, what does Adoree Jackson need to do in order to improve as a defensive back for this Philadelphia Eagles defense? And Vic Fangio used the word technician. I need him to be a much better technician with the way he goes about his business. Okay, you're wincing already, Seth. What did you make of that comment from the Eagles DC?
Listen, man, technique is something that, you've worked on from your time in the league. Vic knows that this guy is not a technician. Come on. When he made the statement of what he made in the preseason, okay, you've been on this team, you've been on that team, you've been on this team, okay? I think it's time now that you define who you really are, okay? Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that Vic expects for this guy to be a better technician where, 8 years in, D-Gun? Mm-hmm. 8 years in the league, if you're not a technician by now, it ain't coming, the fairy dust ain't going to sprinkle, the fairy ain't going to sprinkle you with fairy dust and all of a sudden you become a technician.
That ceiling's a little closer to his head
because that kind of thing develops early in your career, okay? This is, in a lot of ways, this is one of the things that I don't like about the off-season program for, NFL players. When I was in the league, you could spend time in the off-season with your position coach and work on the fine details. Now you got 3-day OTAs, and then now the coaches can't touch you, they can't talk to you, they can't be around you. Well, no wonder these players don't develop, because the players, the coaches who are responsible for developing them, they can't even work with them in the off season. So where are you supposed to go to work on the mastery of your position? And a lot of these players don't even feel like they need to master their. So when Vic talks about technique, Quinyon Mitchell is a technician, because I can guarantee you, ever since he's been able to backpedal, and do things the right way, he's been doing it that way. I don't know. I just, for the sake of keeping the show moving, I'm just going to wrap right there. But I could do a whole show on technique.
We have 45 more minutes. Go ahead.
And how ridiculous it looks and how it damages the game, when these guys don't utilize the fundamental techniques of playing their position. And nowadays, D, I think that offensive coordinators are game planning the lack of technique on certain players. For example, if a player's not technically sound when the ball goes away, like Chris Jones did last week, going inside, we're going to game plan that because we know that there's a high probability that he will do something that he's not supposed to do, opposed to the guy that I got outside technique. I'm going to keep my outside arm free. I don't care if that ball goes up in the upper deck. Guess what? My job is to make sure nobody gets around this edge. Okay? So when you know you have a guy that will break the rules and the integrity of the defense, guess what coordinators are going to do? We're going to game plan that flaw.
So when you talk about technical flaws in a lot of players, does it come down to the players not listening or the coaches not teaching it as much out of frustration because the players are not listening?
It's a little bit of everything. Why do you think you have so many of these players today that seek outside counsel in the offseason for what they do? You've got pass rushing camps, you got tight end universities, you got all of these things. You didn't need those things back in the day because your position coach provided that kind of stuff. And now, listen, I've been in a camp. I've coached in a camp. A lot of these coaches don't know anything but the X's and O's. And I can teach, my wife understands the X's and O's, and I could put her up on the whiteboard and she could teach somebody the X's and O's of the game. But what does a coach provide? A coach teaches you technique. A coach gives you defensive structure and shows you why we're doing what we're doing. And then a coach also, helps you with your fundamentals. Okay? If I'm trying to get from point A to point B, and for some reason I just can't get there, okay, there's always something technically that you're doing that's not allowing you to get there. And it's up to your coach to be able to have the eye to see what that is and to help you fix it. And a lot of times in today's NFL, they can tell you the X's and O's, but they can't tell you the how and they can't tell you the why. Okay. And it's more prevalent now in today's NFL than any other time in the league. Like a lot of these guys, they can tell you the X's and O's, but they don't have a snowball's chance in hell of really being a coach in the National Football League, because all they can do is hand you a game plan every single week and tell you the X's and O's. Then they get you in the meetings and they scream at you for not being able to get from point B to point A to point B, but they can't give you the fix on how to get from point A to point B.
Right.
All right, well, how about point A to point B? Point A is the field, point B the bench. How quick until Adoree Jackson is on the bench and somebody else is starting in that spot? Is that even a thought yet for you guys?
Absolutely.
It is a thought. Yeah, absolutely. But the thought doesn't come to fruition unless Howie goes out and makes a move that makes us turn our heads. If he keep it in-house the way it is now with the revolving door of people playing that position, I don't think there's a finite time frame in terms of when he could be benched. Because look what you have behind him. You have a bunch of youth there. I thought Keely Ringo coming out of camp was going to win that position. He didn't, okay? And you look at what you have behind Adoree Jackson right now. So I think it's going to be, I hate to say this, unless Howie makes a move, and there's not a lot out there in the free agent market.
So Jacorian Bennett, a guy who we obviously already acquired, is not a leader in the
As
clubhouse.
of right now, no.
Okay.
And maybe by the second half of the season, if we have this conversation, we get a definitive answer, he could be that guy by then. But as we look at it right now, I think it's going to be by committee if Adoree continues to play the way he's played up to this point.
I think that it's just a matter of time. I think Jacorian Bennett, they brought him here a week and a half left in the preseason. In camp, okay? So he's learned a whole new defense. He's learned a whole new language, so to speak. And I think the minute that they feel confident enough in him that he understands the defense and they don't have to worry about him, it's his job. It's pretty clear and evident to me that what they need and what they want out of Adoree Jackson, he's just not able to provide it. If that was the case, he may still be on the Titans or the Giants or wherever he's been.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And then you've got out there, you got Stephon Gilmore, you've got Asante Samuel Jr., which I don't understand why they don't kick the tires on those guys to see, if there's some tread left on those, bring those guys in to kind of motivate the position. But it's pretty evident that they're going to have issues and teams are going to attack it. I'm telling you today, Patrick Mahomes is going to attack Adoree Jackson. They're game planning him. They have game plans.
Absolutely.
If you're a smart offensive, mind, you do that. You're not trying to attack,
Quinyon.
Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean. You're going to go after the weak link. I said it last week that's where they would go. That's where they went. They're going to go after him in crucial situations again today. Because when you look over there and you see him 10 yards off the ball, guess what they're going to do? Patrick Mahomes is not going to go to his read, even if his read begins on the left side. His read's going to be like, oh, you want to play 10 yards off? I'm going to throw the ball out here to, Hollywood Brown, and let's see you come up and make a tackle,
When you mention the two names that you just mentioned, Stephon Gilmore, Asante Samuel Jr., and these are prominent names in the NFL. Asante, just a couple of years ago, was considered up and coming one of the better corners in the National Football League. The first thing that comes to mind is, why are they still out there?
Right.
Why are they still out there? Because even if it's about money, players want to play. They want to stay active, become relevant, so that they can try to enhance their marketability beyond this season as well. Why are they still out there? Now, Stephon, you can say, has he lost his step? As great as he was in his day, has he lost? Does the league deem him as a player who simply doesn't have it anymore? Okay, but in terms of Asante, he's still a young player. Why is he still out there? That's a red flag for me in terms of, don't be too anxious to go out there and get him, because there's 31 other teams that probably need cornerbacks as well. Nobody else is pursuing him right now.
No, I'm talking about just going to get him from the standpoint. I'm not saying you got to go get him. I said kick the tire.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, bring them in, see what they look like, give them a workout, and if they look like they have something to offer, then you sign them. You already passed week 1, so that's the game that the NFL plays.
Yep.
With their veterans.
You don't have to guarantee their contracts.
Now you don't have to guarantee the contract,
right.
So you bring them in and see. And if it doesn't work out, then you can move on.
But again, I ask the question: why has not just the Eagles, but why hasn't somebody brought? I mean, we watched the first 2 weeks first week in the NFL. There's a whole lot of teams that need help on the outside. Why have they not been brought in just to work out?
I tell you what, pride.
You think it's the players' pride?
Sometimes it's players' pride. I retired, and it cost me another Super Bowl and another Super Bowl ring because of pride. So I can kind of sympathize, and understand. Not necessarily sympathize and understand, but I know what goes into the mindset. When I left Denver, okay, I was frustrated. I wanted to be on the field. I felt like I had something left, in me to play. So when I went to try out for the Rams and they wanted to sign me, but they only wanted me to be a backup, okay, it was an opportunity for me to, get another year under my belt.
Right.
But I felt like, hey, if I can't compete to play in the NFL any longer, then I'm not going to just be somebody's backup and be waiting for somebody. So I checked out and went home, okay? Over $1 million in salary, I let go. Another chance, because that's the year that the Rams won the Super Bowl. A chance to win and go to my 3rd Super Bowl in a row and win another Super Bowl ring. Pride, okay?
Pride goeth before the fall.
Absolutely. So, I mean, sometimes it's not just the player. Stephon Gilmore's been making a lot of money in this league for a long time.
Yeah, he's made his
money. So if a team comes to him and says, hey, we want to sign you, but all we got is $3 million, on the cap, he's laughing at him like, man, you out your damn mind if you think I'm coming to play every single down for $3 million when I've been playing for 10 or 12, 15 for the last 6-7 years. Not doing it. I'll wait for teams to get desperate enough that they need my services and then come in and get 7 or 8.
When you're in a profession where the average lifespan is less than 4 years, and I'm gonna hone this in on Asante Samuel Jr. And I guarantee his agent is telling him, just sit and wait. Because based on what Seth just said, you hear this all the time. You know what, just wait. Somebody's going to get desperate. You're going to have somebody getting injured. They're going to need a quick fix. And the numbers they're offering you now are going to go up significantly in maybe a couple of weeks. Just sit back and wait. Sometimes, though, it blows up on them. Because then when you get close to that trade deadline, I mean, that's all we got left to offer. You take it or leave it. Now, from Asante's standpoint, as young as he is, and you're in a profession where your career is less than on an average 4 years, you better rethink your situation, because you know what they say, out of sight, out of mind after a while.
Right.
Well, the chat's saying that Asante just got cleared from injury. I didn't know he was hurt.
I thought he was over it by now, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I have one final question in this opening segment, Seth, and that's just how you feeling? This is the first time I think we went an entire opening segment all on defense. We did not talk offense even a little bit. But guess what's coming up next? Because we got not only behind enemy lines coming up, but we also got our Say What segment featuring A.J. Brown, who just couldn't help himself again at his locker. We'll talk about that more when we return on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel. This is the Verizon Pregame Show.
I know what you're thinking. Total glow up. What's her secret?
Are you guys hearing?
I'll
I haven't heard anything
totally
the whole show.
With Verizon.
I haven't heard
Everyone
anything
gets
the
a
whole
free
show
Hey,
in my
PJ.
ear. Number
Even
one.
if you're already a customer.
And number two,
Like
I'm
me.
looking at the
Now
chat,
I have
and
Google
people
Gemini.
are saying,
It's like a little
we
blind
can't hear
spot in my
Seth and
pocket.
Gunner's mics.
Gemini, what eye makeup goes with this lipstick?
Yeah, did we make an adjustment on that?
Wow. Setting the bar high for daycare pickup.
Okay. Copy that.
Well, I'm not hearing. We're not
Yeah,
hearing.
we're not hearing
each
each
other.
other,
I
yeah.
don't know what's going on with the
There's a number on the screen.
IFBs.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
All right,
There's a
behind
number on
enemy
the
lines.
screen.
coming
There's a
up.
number
I
on the
need your
screen.
help here, man.
There's a number on the screen.
No, I need.
There is a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
Since 1893, Weber Display and Packaging has been Pennsylvania's leading manufacturer of corrugated packaging and displays. We're family owned with 4 Philadelphia locations, 2 converting facilities, a warehouse, and a fulfillment center. Designed through delivery, we exceed customer needs. Weber Display and Packaging. Our core values drive everything we do. Come join our team.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Recovery Unplugged. Welcome back to the Verizon Pregame Show ahead of Week 2 action. Philadelphia Eagles in Kansas City taking on, yes, that's right, for another Super Bowl matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. Before we get into our behind enemy lines, one thing I want to bring up is A.J. Brown and targets. You're talking about after Week 1, he's only looked at one time, has 1 reception, and it came after the 151 mark of the game. A minute 51 seconds left, he finally gets a look. What do you want to see from Kevin Patullo in this game to make sure that A.J. Brown gets that football?
I don't want to see nothing. I want to see them run their offense, and whoever gets the ball gets the ball. Plain and simple. We need to stop with this nonsense about, oh, AJ's got to get his touches. The objective is to win the game. And if that means that AJ gets 10 catches today and 1 tomorrow and next week, and, the objective is to win the game. It's no different than this whole narrative with Jalen Hurts, okay? I don't care what he throws for. I don't care what his stats look like. What I care about is whether my quarterback wins or loses, okay? It's like we create all of this drama. Like AJ could have 200 yards receiving and the Eagles get their ass kicked. Y'all gonna be happy with that? Are you gonna be happy with that? Or would you rather have AJ Brown, the offense operate the way that it's supposed to operate, and when AJ is supposed to get the ball, he gets the ball, and if he ain't supposed to get it, he don't get it, and you win. We need to stop with this, man. I'm like so sick and tired of it. So sick and tired of the conversation that continues to go on. Yes, he's your number 1 wide receiver. He's your highest paid wide receiver. Why? Because you count on him to make plays when the ball comes his way. Okay? Saquon Barkley is our highest paid running back. Why? Because we count on him to make plays when it's time to make plays. We're not going to devise our offense, we got to get AJ involved. What if the defense takes AJ away? That means that somebody else has got to win. Somebody else has got to eat. At some point in time, Saquon is going to get going. They're going to have to give us a heavy box, and now AJ is going to get one-on-ones. It's week 1, people. Settle the hell down.
Here's my concern. Go back to last season, a couple of times when AJ supposedly pouting because he wasn't getting enough looks. Guess what happened the next game? They went out of their way to feed the ball to AJ early and often. Now, I'm waiting to see if that happens again today. I guarantee you Kansas City is going to try to take Saquon out of the game just like Dallas did, just like Chiefs did in the Super Bowl. That means you're going to have to go up top a little bit more maybe. I just have a feeling that Jalen is going to be looking for A.J. early and often to appease him. You know, I'm not saying he's a problem right now, but we saw some of the things that reading the book on the sidelines and things of that nature a season ago. I just hope they don't force feed him and step out of character in terms of what this offense is supposed to look like in terms of trying to keep that Kansas City Chiefs defense on its heel and keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field.
All right, before we get into behind enemy lines, let's talk about one person that Philadelphia Eagles fans are obviously well aware of, and that's Steve Spagnuolo. A great defensive coordinator, of course, and going into last year's Super Bowl, everyone wanted to talk about what Steve Spagnuolo was going to do to stop not just Saquon Barkley, but also the Eagles' passing attack. And to use Jalen Hurts' words, another defensive coordinator is going to have to pick their poison when it comes to this offense. Do you expect, Seth, the same type of attack from Steve Spagnuolo in just focusing in on Saquon Barkley and stopping the run?
No, I think what they're going to do is they're going to mix it up this time, because the intent was take Saquon away and make Jalen beat you throwing the arm. That's exactly what he did. Okay, so now that he's proven that he can do that, now you got to adjust the way that you call your defense. If I'm a defensive coordinator, yeah, my intent is to slow down the run, but I can't sell out my entire defense to stop Saquon. I've got to put the onus on, my front guys, because listen, they know full well if you give the Eagles two high safeties that Jalen's going to check at the line of scrimmage to a run. Okay, so be it. So be it. But if you send the message on first and second down, we're going to stop the run solely with a heavy box, single high safety. Well, now you give Jalen the advantage, because when you go a heavy box as a linebacker, when the defensive coordinator makes that call, guess what my mindset is? He's making that call so that because he anticipates that they're going to run the football. Now, I still got to read my keys and decipher what they're doing on first and second down. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, he's making this call because he believes that they're going to run the football. So my first inclination is play the run. Okay? So when Jalen sticks that ball out there and freezes that 8-man box, guess what happens? That opens up the outside.
That's right.
for the wide receivers. So now they're going to have to, as a coordinator, you have to balance up what you're doing. You can't show him pre-snap that, we're in a heavy box and we're going to make sure we take Saquon away, because now you give him the out that, okay, I'm going to give you the illusion that we're going to run it, and then I'm going to shred your behind it.
Gunnar, before you respond to it, Steve Spagnuolo faced an offense that ran the football still, despite only 2.3 yards per carry in the Super Bowl with Saquon Barkley. They still ran the football 25 times.
Sure. Commitment.
Exactly, committing to that run. So does Steve Spagnuolo expect that same type of mix from the Eagles offense?
He should. And that's what the Eagles have to do. You have to make them play honest. Because if you don't make them play honest, then they're going to start overloading and trying to get to Jalen Hurts even more. So you have to make them play. You have to make them think. Even if you end up doing a lot of play action off the run, you have to make them think that I understand you're stonewalling us right now, but it only takes one seam for a Saquon to slip through and could bust the game wide open. So yes, I expect them fully to try to have another balanced attack, because that is what their offense is predicated on. Now we're still trying to get used to what is a Kevin Patullo offense supposed to look like, compared to what they had last year. It's not going to be exactly the way it was a season ago, but you're hoping it's similar because they had so much success with it a year ago. You don't want to see Brian Johnson Part 2. That's the one thing you don't want to see with this Eagles offense.
Certainly. All right, let's get into behind enemy lines and take a look at what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be throwing at the Philadelphia Eagles today. I'll start it off, gentlemen, who I am looking at for this Kansas City Chiefs offense in particular. We all know how good Patrick Mahomes is. Spoiler, we're not going to talk about him behind enemy lines. You know how good he is. I'm going to focus on Marquise Hollywood Brown in this game. Absolutely torched the secondary of the Chargers in Week 1 in São Paulo, Brazil. He took him for 99 yards on 10 receptions, the key target of Patrick Mahomes. And let's call it what it was. Last week, yes, the Eagles played great, shut him out in the second half, but there are still plenty of plays that if CeeDee Lamb didn't have a case of the dropsies, a case of the butterfingers against the Eagles secondary, we might be talking about a different outcome in that game. But fortunately, they found a way to make sure they closed out that victory. Marquise Hollywood Brown's the guy I'm looking at in week 1. Gunner, who are you looking at?
I'm going to have to go with Chris Jones. I think Chris Jones is the heart and soul of that defense. That's a big man, 6'6", 310, to be as agile as he is. And they know what Chris Jones does for that defensive front basically gets the engine going for that Kansas City defense. He's not just a verbal leader, he's a physical leader as well. He didn't have a great game last week against the Chargers, but I fully expect him to come out and do everything possible to be as disruptive as possible to that Eagles offense. So obviously they know first and foremost they need to know where Chris Jones is every down. They like to move him around. Chris Jones is one of those players they like to move around as well, and they better know where he is every play because he can wreck an offensive play at any given moment.
Didn't show up much on the stat sheet in the Super Bowl, but
No, he
did come
didn't.
up with 1 quarterback hit in last year's Super Bowl. Seth, who are you looking at?
I think Andy has to change the narrative. That's why I'm going with Isaiah Pacheco today. There's no way with your 2 top wide receivers out that you can afford to approach this game the way that you approached it in the Super Bowl and the way you approached it last week. You know, this kid changed the narrative in the Super Bowl that the Eagles lost back in 22, I think it is. And it just, in the second half, because the Eagles had that game won. They came out in the second half. Andy made a decision, we're going to run the ball. They ran the ball all over the Eagles defense. That loosened things up and allowed Patrick Mahomes to get to some play action, some misdirection things. Game, set, and match, the whole tempo of the game changed. I think they know that they have to get the run game going today. If they don't, that this pass rush will eat them up because they still haven't remedied and fixed the offensive line problems that they have.
Now we're going to focus in on what the Eagles have going on in their locker room. I was a little perplexed. I'll say this. Not frustrated, not angry, perplexed, confused. It's not that hard to do to me. But A.J. Brown was at his locker, and he was asked very simply a question about whether or not this, what the offense needs to do in the passing game to get him more involved, what he'd like to see more. Now, he said basically, I'm not going to answer that. That question's a little bit too leading, unfortunately, a loaded question, if you will. And then he was asked about the praise he received from head coach Nick Sirianni when it came to his blocking ability in the Eagles' win over the Cowboys in Week 1. And this is what he said. This is our Say What segment here. This I found perplexing. I don't get this. Maybe you can explain it to me, Seth. I'm not in it for participation trophies. He's being praised, lauded for his blocking ability, being a great teammate, which, by the way, for the record, I believe he is. I don't believe him to be a diva or a drama queen, whatever people want to label him as. Not in it for participation trophies. He's getting praise from his coaching staff for doing his job despite not being targeted until the final minute, 51 seconds of the game. What do you make of that?
He did a great job of avoiding what he really wanted to say.
Okay.
That's what I really believe.
Okay, well, can we interpret? What do you think he wanted to say?
I think he wanted to say that, that sounds good, but get me the damn ball.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, good. That's
How about that,
That's what I thought.
Yeah. He put it as eloquently as he possibly could, but the way he let it slip out, it still made you go, huh? What? Because
Say what?
Say what?
Exactly.
Nick Sirianni applauds all of his receivers. If you look at any receiver on this roster for the last couple of years, all of them have done outstanding jobs in terms of blocking. And you have to understand the mindset is when you have a thoroughbred running a football like a Saquon Barkley, you're going to have to block. Now, he knows that, so why would he say that to put that out there? Because it draws more attention to him. Because here we are, as well as other media outlets, other podcasts, radio shows, TV shows that have talked about this and are talking about it today. Why would you put that out there? Because you know what's going to happen? And we did this last year a couple of times when they go to the ISO cam during the games and a running play didn't work exactly as they wanted. And we've said, AJ missed that block. Now, if that happened in the game today, what are we going to be talking about after the game? If it's a defining moment in a game, like a big third down, a fourth down play, what are we going to be talking about? Going back to something AJ said during the week leading up to this game.
Yeah, he wanted none of that block, something like that.
Exactly.
None of that business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I throw something out, for public consumption?
Sure, you're bigger than us. You can.
Is there another team in the National Football League that's successful that deals with this commentary from week to week?
Sure.
Who?
Miami, they have Tyreek Hill. He's in something every week.
I said
This guy-
successful.
Touche.
I said successful.
Oh, that's successful. Okay.
Let's see.
See, because losing teams deal with this kind of stuff. Even the media around losing teams will ask these types of questions to get content
For
to
the
be
week.
created.
Sure.
Okay? But winning teams don't do this. You ever hear Andy Reid addressing this?
No.
Okay, so the reason why I said that is that Nick Sirianni needs to graduate to the point where he doesn't even address the fact that A.J. Brown only got one reception. Okay? Because if I'm the head coach and one of these knucklehead beat writers comes at me with one of these questions, you know what my answer is? That we win or lose the game. Okay? If we won the game, I have no comment about individual players' play. Okay? So now you shut all that nonsense down and all the drama surrounding AJ not getting his targets goes away. Because at the end of the day, the focus should be on wins and losses. Am I correct?
Yeah. Here's how I would answer it. If the reporter asked me that question, I said, you know what? How long you been watching this team? Number one. Number two, we are blessed to have riches beyond our wildest imagination, and each and every week, somebody. Might not be the same person, but somebody is going to stand out more so than others. And we have a group of guys here who understand that. If they didn't understand that, they wouldn't be here. That's how you answer that question, plain and simple.
I would have loved, look, we can all put words in his mouth and all that, but I would have loved for him to say, you know, that's always great to hear, but I loved more so when the coach praised me for staying ready throughout the entire game despite not getting looks. Like A.J. Brown, for a guy that's always labeled a diva, he wasn't sulking through that game.
No.
As Sirianni said, he stayed ready throughout that entire game. As far as the what do you want to see from the passing game, what did you learn from the passing game throughout watching the film this week, I found it very interesting that mum was the word from him on that, but yet then he goes on another interview. This was with Jordan Schultz, as a matter of fact, and he was asked, hey, why only one look? He said, it was a lot of zone coverage. I was bracketed. I am 100% healthy for the people that were saying I wasn't. I just couldn't get open. It didn't call for it. Like, where was that answer when he was addressing the media here in Philadelphia?
Local media, he gets tired of. National media puts on a good face.
And to your point, Seth, I did a radio hit in Kansas City this week, and they asked me the question that you were leading into there about A.J. Brown and whether or not this is going to be a problem. And I said, let's talk about something Andy Reid dealt with before. Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb. I know it's a tired subject at this point, but this is not that. And it's not just the fact that these are two totally different personalities. It's more so along the lines of what we learned from the Philadelphia Eagles last year. When Devontae Smith was at his locker after that horrible game against the Panthers, and A.J. Brown was at his locker after that same game, and Jalen Hurts was on the microphone, and Nick Sirianni was on the microphone, everybody to a man talked about having tough conversations. Those tough conversations didn't lead to anything destructive. It led to something constructive. And they were able to patch things up and come out with that game against the Steelers where they were on point and crisp in that game. That's why I think, to get to your point, Seth, about how special this locker room is, why the outside noise doesn't affect them, they'll have the tough conversations in-house and come out on the other side better.
I think that on the outside we make more of it than it probably is. And I feel like the Eagles, the coaches and the players need to do a better job of just shutting it down. You know, because it doesn't benefit anything. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, if you like really look at it closely, if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, there's a certain amount of hate on a national level that exists. I'm not, saying anything that we don't know. You know, they talk about, our quarterback and how much talent he has around him. They talk about the talent on the roster and the fact that the head coach, it's easy to coach this team because he's got so much talent. The nonsense just goes on and on and on and on and on. So I think that what the Eagles need to do, from the PR department to the head coach right on down to the players, is understand that these narratives get created on a national basis because there's this certain level of hate about the success that this Philadelphia Eagles team has had over the last 8 years. 3 Super Bowls in 8 years and 2 wins, okay? And learn how to just phase it out, because you can certainly talk about football more than you have to talk about the drama that's surrounding the team. The Eagles won last week, 24-20. Don't nobody give a damn about the fact that A.J. Brown only had one reception in the game, because I tell people this all the time. It's like, golfing. That I knocked that putt in. It was lucky. There's no pitches on the scorecard. Don't nobody care how. They only care how many. Mm-hmm. Don't nobody care at the end of the day how the Eagles won. The only thing you care about is that they won. When you get to the end of the season, okay, and it comes down to us trying to figure out, are we a 1 seed or a 2 seed or a 3 seed? Ain't nobody gonna give a damn about week 1 that A.J. Brown only had 1 catch. Only thing they care about is that we won that game, and because we won that game, that one game was the difference between us being a 3 seed and a 1 seed. That's how you have to look at it.
For the record, that putt was lucky. It was lucky for me.
There ain't no such thing as luck. The only luck there is the luck that you make.
Okay, fair enough. All right, when we come back, we're gonna take a look at Kevin Patullo. We're gonna answer the question that A.J. Brown was actually asked. What we want to see from this Philadelphia Eagles offense in Week 2. Also, the second game for Eagles offensive coordinator and play caller Kevin Patullo calling the shots. That's when we return. This is the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel. If you're watching us there, great. Like and subscribe. And also, thanks to those watching on 6abc.com. We'll be right back with more of the Eagles pregame show, brought to you by Verizon.
At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
Gentlemen, are you ready for a wardrobe update? Introducing Divine Nine's Custom Menswear, your clothier for truly unique, custom-made threads. With Divine Nine, you can design your own one-of-a-kind suit, jacket, slacks, shirts, golf pants, and shorts, perfectly handcrafted by our skilled artisans who will bring your vision to life. Prepare to stand out from the crowd with Divine Nine's Custom Clothier, official clothier of Seth Joyner. Custom clothing made for you.
If you understand that success is built on trusted relationships and dependable performance, Mid-Penn Bank is the right bank for you. We're on a mission to prove that the right bankers can make a big difference. We work harder, we get things done, and we're in your corner. With financial centers strategically located throughout the greater Philadelphia region and new locations in central New Jersey, we're ready to bring you the best in commercial and personal banking. Call or visit us today to connect with a professional Mid-Penn banker. Member FDIC. Go Eagles!
Pride, passion, and persistence. These are the values that drive us all at Ron Jaworski Golf. We strive to deliver outstanding conditions as well as playability for golfers of all ages and abilities. Our championship golf courses offer a variety of challenges, from a link-style walk along the river to an escape into the pines and everything in between. My team at Ron Jaworski Golf is committed to delivering memorable experiences every single day. See all we do at ronjaworskigolf.com.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Weber Packaging. Ladies and gentlemen, Eagles kicking off with the Kansas City Chiefs coming up at 4:25 today. National audience, of course. We looked at the film, we watched it, we broke it down. Vic Fangio, we know what to expect from the defense, at least what he wants to do out there. Kevin Patullo, though, some might say incomplete after game one, especially after getting shut out, kept out of the end zone, rather, in the second half of week one against the Cowboys. When you went back and watched the film of what this offense did, Seth, what do you need to see from them coming out of week one? What can they improve upon?
They've got to get the run game established. I don't know that, it was really interesting because Kevin Patullo said during the week, and people just got all bent out of shape about it. He said that, there were some times where we didn't get as many heavy boxes as people thought that we got. He said, we just didn't block it right. And people lost their mind. Oh, he's throwing the players under the bus.
Right.
And, so I followed, I retweeted it. And I said, did he tell the truth or did he lie? Okay? I'm like so sick and tired of this babying the players as a coach. I shouldn't have to take the heat for you when you don't do it the right way. The fact is, if you didn't block it right, Okay, he didn't call any one player out in particular. He said we didn't block it correct. He didn't say anything that was wrong. And if you're a player, think about this, all you people who believe that it's not right for a coach to throw players under the bus. If you're a player and I tell you all week long that this is what it's going to look like and this is how you should do it, and you practice it all week long and then you don't get it done, I'm supposed to step in front of the podium in the presser and I'm supposed to say, well, I got to do a better job of coaching them. No, the hell I don't, because you know what? I told him all week long, not only did he get it in practice, D-Gun, okay, but we talked about it in the classroom. He should have been focusing in on it, you know, in his personal film study. It's in the game plan, okay? But as a coach, I'm supposed to take the bullets for you as a player when you don't do what's necessary for the team to be successful? You know, so I'm like, no. The other thing is, you asked me what is it that he needs to do, okay? When the Eagles want to run the football, they were successful with it last year, but I think sometimes against teams who have aggressive defensive backs that don't mind the contact and don't mind mixing it up, when the Eagles like to shrink their formations, they like to, you know, cut down the wide receiver splits. But in a lot of ways, what you do is you create corner cat blitzes off of it because the corner's closer to the line of scrimmage, so you can bring them off the edge. You got more guys. As an offensive coordinator, you create a heavy box by minimizing, you know, your splits. So if the Eagles really want to run the football, spread it out. Let's get man-on-man type blocking, especially today because your best blocking tight end, Dallas Goedert, is out. You know, so we don't want to, like, condense these formations. And because what winds up happening is if the wide receivers is blocking, he's either got to block down on the linebacker or he's got to get a safety. And now the corner's out there, and we want to force the corner to make the tackle. But when you got guys that close to the line of scrimmage, now you got guys, they start shooting gaps from all over the place. And now where you had blocking before, you don't necessarily have it because every gap is covered. And lastly, I want to see the Eagles get on the edges running the football. Let's stop running the ball right up the middle where you got 300-pound defensive tackles and linebackers stepping up, you know, clogging it off. Like last week, it just seemed like we just kept bumping our head against the wall. Get on the edges. Get Saquon outside. Get him out there where those one-on-one tackles are a thing that makes that cornerback make a business decision.
While you brought up the Kevin Patullo press conference, Jordan Mailata even said we didn't block well. He even said we kept missing that one extra block we were supposed to make. Saquon Barkley even alluded to it this week during his media session. But Patullo said something I thought was even more interesting, throwing out the script. I thought that was his job. And to admit that they just kind of threw that away, I don't know if that was because Jalen was doing such a great job with his checkdowns or reading what the defense was giving him there. But, yeah, apparently just throwing that out the way. What'd you guys make of that?
Well, let's see if it continues to be a pattern. You know, if that's the case, I don't think that's going to fly too well, you know, because there's a reason why teams go into games scripting certain things in terms of how they want to attack. And then they adjust on the fly in terms of, all right, this portion worked, this did not, let's go to plan B now. But if he says he's just throwing out the script and just winging it, that's like playing sandlot football. Well, I don't know if that's going to work or not.
On that note, the Eagles had trouble scoring in the first quarter.
Sure.
We've seen this over the years now. They scored a lot last week, especially in the first half. I guess no script helped everything.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is that the case?
Let me just get out of the way of Jalen Hurts being awesome.
No, listen. I think last year the conversation was, you know, we don't really have a script. You know, I don't believe Kellen Moore really had, you know, a first 15. I think what they did is they wanted to see how the defense was going to attack them and then adjust from there. That's rare because there's not very many coordinators who have the ability to adjust on the fly. It's either we got to get to halftime and make some adjustments, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons why Dallas gave us so many problems in the second half of last week's game. You had halftime, and then you had an hour and 3 to 5 minute delay where Dallas's defensive staff could actually sit. And whether they had a chalkboard or whether they were on a laptop or on pen and paper, they can say, okay, this is what they're doing. This is how we're going to adjust. Okay, and then once we can get first and second down under control on 2nd and long and 3rd and long situations, we're coming with blitzes. If you want to cut your splits down, we're coming with a cat blitz off the corner. If you want to, if that's not the case, we're going to send our linebackers. Well, we're not going to let Jalen sit back there and just sit in zone and let him pick us apart like he did in the first half. So I don't know. I can't say with certainty that it's a good thing or bad thing, because whatever it is that works, if it's the first 15 and it works, and then all of a sudden you want to come back and run the script again, then do it again. If not, hey, we're just going to call our plays to see how the defense reacts to what we're calling and then adjust. If you have the capability to do that, then do that. But to me, whatever it is that works.
Very interesting. It's time for predictions, gentlemen. First, our Mid-Penn Bank player to bank on predictions. Gunnar, I'll start with you. When you look at this Eagles team, who do you think is going to be the guy that really steps up and helps this Eagles team win the football game?
Wow.
A lot of talent out there.
Kansas City, surprisingly enough, could not run the football against the Chargers. Patrick Mahomes had more rushing yards than everybody else on that backfield, and that's not what Andy Reid wants from his quarterback. Kansas City's also hurting in a lot of ways, especially with the wide receiver position. I think this could be a big game for Zach Bond in a lot of ways, in terms of being disruptive, in terms of helping stonewall that inept running game of Kansas City, which is going to force Mahomes to do some other things, which is going to play right into the Eagles' defensive front's hands in terms of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis pinning back their ears and going after him and so on and so forth. I'm going to go with Zach Bond in this game, having a big game.
Going on the defensive side of the football.
Going deep.
Get another pick, maybe?
Maybe another pick.
Double dip.
Hey, you never know.
Seth, who you banking on for this one?
Well, D just mentioned him, but I'm going with Jalen Carter. He's got some amends to make. And this Chiefs offensive line is just not very good. And he should be motivated, ready to eat, ready to tear this thing up. If they want to run the ball, I expect for him to be a factor. And listen, quite frankly, I think that, we're probably looking at the, 1 and 2 best defensive tackles in the National Football League between Jalen Carter and Chris Jones. That's enough motivation within itself. Chris Jones is going to be motivated, and certainly Jalen Carter should be motivated. I'm looking for a big day out of him today in all phases of the game.
Two great names, both obviously on the defensive side of things. I'm going to go with the Eagles' key blocking wide receiver, A.J. Brown.
I knew one of us had to pick him. One of us had to.
I just think he's really going to have a breakout game offensive. People are going to be, wow, he's more than a blocking wide receiver. This is amazing. No, but in all seriousness, we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. I don't think Steve Spagnuolo is going to change too much in this game.
No.
And I think it's basically going to come down to, if you want to get into a shootout with Patrick Mahomes, you kind of like your odds in that regard. If they get into a shootout here, A.J. Brown's going to be a big part of that. They're still going to be keying in on Saquon Barkley. I still think Saquon's going to have more than 2.3 yards per carry that he had in the Super Bowl against this defense, but I think this is, again, going to be the Jalen Hurts air attack that is going to be the star of the show in this one. A.J. Brown's going to be my player to bank on for this one. As far as my prediction, I still think offenses are catching up to defenses now. I don't think you're going to see a similar score to what you saw last week. I think it's going to be a little bit higher than that, especially when you talk about the weapons that are available on the offensive side of the football for these two teams. I think the Eagles win this game today, gentlemen, 31-27 over the Kansas City Chiefs. Gunnar, what do you got?
I'm going 27-24 Eagles. Although there's been a lot of turnover on the defensive side of the ball, this Eagles team is not fearful of going into Arrowhead. They've done it already. Most of these guys that are on this roster did it already in Kansas City. Just helping the young players settle down a little bit more. It might take a quarter or so, but once they settle in, it comes down to who has the better personnel overall. Eagles have the better personnel. I think they go down the field and win the game late, 27-24.
27-24 is what Gunner's got. Seth, what say you?
I told you guys before the Super Bowl I wasn't worried about Kansas City nor Patrick Mahomes, that the Eagles would win it. I feel like they'll win this one again. It'll be close because I think we're in that window. We're in the starters preseason. So these first 4 games are quite unpredictable, where these coaches are trying to figure out what their players are going to be, moving forward. The players are getting themselves in regular season shape. They're taking the bruises and being battered the way that they probably should have in the preseason, but now they got to do it, in the first 4 games. So it's kind of unpredictable, but I still think the Eagles are the better football team. They're the better roster, and they go into Kansas City and win this game Give me the Eagles winning 26-21.
26-21. We're all in the same neighborhood here. For Seth Joyner, for Derek Gunn, I'm Mark Farzetta. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys being along for this ride. Ahead of Eagles kicking off in Kansas City against the Chiefs coming up at 4:25 at Arrowhead. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel, and also make sure you guys check us out on 6abc.com as well. See you postgame.
I know what you're thinking. Total glow up. What's her secret? Fine, I'll spill. I totally upgraded with Verizon. Everyone gets a free phone with any plan, even if you're already a customer, like me. Now I have Google Gemini. It's like a little glam squad in my pocket. Gemini, what eye makeup goes with this lipstick?
I'd suggest a classic cat eye.
Wow, setting the bar high for daycare pickup. Get in on this.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There is a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
Gentlemen, are you ready for a wardrobe update? Introducing Divine Nine's Custom Menswear, your clothier for truly unique, custom-made threads. With Divine Nine, you can design your own one-of-a-kind suit, jacket, slacks, shirts, golf pants, and shorts, perfectly handcrafted by our skilled artisans who will bring your vision to life. Prepare to stand out from the crowd with Divine Nine's Custom Clothier, official clothier of Seth Joyner. Custom clothing made for you.